Hey guys, my name is Seppi, and in today's video we're going to be discussing the tweet that Joseph Staten put out with the article regarding 343 Industries and what they're doing with Halo moving forward. The question is it enough? Let's discuss some of the highlights and we'll see for ourselves. So I've already read this article twice, so I'm picking out some of the highlights that I've seen. Nothing really addresses some of my major concerns, which I'll talk about towards the end of the video, but let's just jump in right to the statement that Joseph Staten has to say. Now, if you don't know, Joseph Staten worked on the original Halos, a director for like some of the cinematics, and he wore plenty of hats. And he reintroduces himself here, and he starts off the article with like a huge bombshell, which is that Halo Infinite is going to be releasing fall 2021. I'm not surprised. I'm okay with it. I think that's okay. I feel like if they were going to delay the game from what we saw in July, maybe a spring release wouldn't have been enough time. There's plenty to discuss here, so let's jump into some of the highlights that I noticed on my first read through. Now, while I'm reading off some of these highlights and discussing them, I will show you some of the amazing screenshots that we got. So yes, starting off with some good news, there are some beautiful screenshots of the multiplayer, of some of the Spartans, how they look, the armor coatings, which we will discuss in a little bit, but feast your eyes on some of these images. First interview is with Nicolas Bouvier, the senior concept artist and art director for 343. Also Neil Harris, the director of art management, and Annie Shastri, the development manager for graphics, in which they discuss and acknowledge the lackluster reveal of the campaign. And Annie says this: July was indeed a very much work in progress slice of the technology, and a reasonable set of key features from global illumination and dynamic time of day to GPU-driven rendering and variable rate shading were all in active development. Much of the graphics team's capacity, along with some of the key technical artists, was focused on achieving high resolution and performance leading up to the demo, which meant several of these key features didn't quite get the level of polish and bug fixing that was warranted. Visual fidelity is a very important goal for Halo Infinite, and the graphics and art teams have been continually aspiring and working closely with each other to create the best looking Halo game ever. I definitely want to acknowledge the input that we got from the community and our fan base. Staying open to critical feedback and looking at the areas where we can learn and do better is an inherent part of our culture at 343. And they also discuss a little bit of the art style and graphical fidelity here. And Neil says here, we knew it wouldn't be trivial to combine the cleaner and simpler forms of classic Halo games like Halo 1 and 2 with the next generation requirements and expectations of Halo Infinite. Merging both was going to be a challenge, but we stood close to our visual principles and made it work in the best way, one day at a time. We managed to find a balance of modernized visuals combined with a classic aesthetic that will definitely speak to all, and we couldn't be more proud of this. And going back to that statement there, looking back at the reveal, I can definitely see that. A lot of people were saying that this looks like a Halo game, and it certainly does. It looked like a Halo game. It just lacked a certain level of polish, detail. They go on to say this regarding the more technical side of graphics. On the graphics technology front, we have made improvements along with fixing bugs that were inherent to some of the techniques, as well as iterating and polishing the features that were still in development. Some of the key features of progress include better quality of global illumination, ambient occlusion, shadows, volumetric lighting, sky, and atmosphere. We have also addressed issues with our GPU-driven rendering and texture streaming solution that should mitigate the LOD, level of detail, popping, and texture quality issues that were prevalent in the July demo. That is wonderful to hear, because one of the biggest things I heard from the community was, oh, they're showing off the power of the Xbox Series X. We expected it to look like that initial trailer we saw in the reveal of Xbox Series X. We expected it to look like that, but you're showing us a vista that's not even a couple hundred yards out, and there's stuff popping in. So that was one of the biggest complaints, and it's nice to know that they are working on that, improving it, and polishing it. They also talk about Craig here, which I think is interesting. They have mentioned him in past little article updates, you could say, and it's some pretty fun stuff. So they go on to say this. Firstly, I can confirm that the facial animation on NPCs was not fully implemented in that build, which resulted in Craig's incredibly deadpan, lifeless look. All characters were modeled in a neutral pose prior to blend shapes and animations being applied. So poor old Craig was never intended to be seen in that condition, which is not something that was evident during that gameplay. It was only later in that close-up freeze frame of his one bad moment where it came to light and the legend of Craig was born. There's been further work done on the material fidelity and more variety added for Brute's faces. We're also working to add some hairdos and beards. Yes, which was something that we hadn't gotten to in July. So whilst we have come to love our dear old Craig, he's certainly undergoing a significant makeover. That's honestly great to hear. Although part of me deep down is hoping that the actual Krek, that brute that comes down on the drop pod, is left alone. But aside from that little hope, like one of my personal biggest complaints with the reveal was the fact that the brutes just looked so plain and boring. Their armor looked like Legos or something. So hopefully they're going to be messing around with that, because 343 has made the Banished look amazing in Halo Wars 2. So the fact that here we are getting brutes, but they don't look like that was really jarring and really like upsetting. But at least to know that they're working on facial animations, they're working on hairdos and beards, should go a decently long way for me at least. And I know a couple other people in the community were hoping that all these brutes weren't just going to be bald and have crummy looking armor. So that is at least good to hear. Do hope they keep Craig the same. The next part is a little bit more technical, so if you want to check out the article and read through it, it's got some very interesting things from the developers talking about how they approached big open areas compared to smaller, more confined spaces, indoor spaces like multiplayer maps. Which does bring me to a point that I want to iterate on. I'm really hoping that unlike Halo 5, and I know there was some of this in Halo 5, but out of all the Halos, it felt the most lackluster in this department. I really hope that some of the multiplayer maps have some life to them. Flood infestations growing and growths, if Flood's going to be in the game. Outdoor multiplayer maps even. Because Halo 5 just felt so like samey in the UNSC base where Spartans train. And I get that was kind of like the point in the lore, but it didn't make for fantastic multiplayer aesthetically, which I know is trivial to say because honestly, Halo 5's multiplayer, I still enjoy it. I still play it, but I would sure have loved for some more variety in multiplayer maps and not just Forge maps. So that's basically my little point on that. The interview continues on with some of the more juicy bits, which I will read for you here. Sit tight, some of these are a little bit longer, but I will skim through them pretty quickly. This is going to be with Chris Blome, the lead progression designer, and the live team. Now, the live team are going to be the guys dealing with multiplayer and things crossing over from challenges, all sorts of stuff. They explain it in the article, so give that a read. I'm going to be discussing more of the stuff they talk about with multiplayer being free to play, what that entails, and also armor coatings, which they get to. Spoiler, regarding the armor coatings. We see and hear the current concerns of our community, specifically right now around coatings. And we look to our systems to make sure we are doing the right thing both for our players and their ability to represent themselves, as well as what is right for a free-to-play, service-driven title. Yes, being free-to-play does mean that there will be some premium cosmetics, but players will still obtain tons of customization content through things like playing campaign, challenges, skill, special events, legacy rewards, such as like getting Spartan rank 152 in Halo 5, the progress system, and more. So that right there initially doesn't sound bad. I get it. If something's free to play, there will be premium cosmetics. That's okay. This is where it gets a little bit crazy, so buckle up. The coding system is something that the live team and our 3D artists designed directly after Halo 5 and is part of the overall customization picture. In previous Halo titles, we had a series of inputs that were simple RGBs and primary and secondary channels. For Halo Infinite, we didn't feel that flat colors and singular patterns were good enough. The coding system allows us to define color, wear and tear, patterns, and materials on a region-by-region basis, and the Spartan or anything in the game, be it armor, weapons, vehicles, even environment elements like fuel barrels. To get to our design vision, we needed to make an exceedingly difficult decision to move away from a system that was in the game from early days, primary and secondary color. The decision was not made lightly, but it has laid the foundation for greater detail and variation when it comes to color customization. In addition to better variation, we can also create coatings much faster than we could create weapon skins in Halo 5, which will allow for better variation over time. Additionally, with coatings now being their own customization option, we can use them as rewards for player accomplishments or even to create bespoke ones for certain occasions. Lastly, coatings use smaller digital footprint and let us add new ones to the game without massive patches or taking up tons of disk space. That right there confuses me. I feel like this would do that more, and they're still not explaining why there just can't be both. Why armor coatings can't change colors, because we all know that they will in multiplayer. Like I've made this point before. When your character is red team for one match with an armor coating on, and then you switch to blue team to another match with that same armor coating on, the color changes. I don't know how else to make that point. So they're just not explaining it. They're not explaining why there just can't be both. We have looked at the system and we understand the concern. In our recent value balancing pass, which was a direct result of the community feedback around coatings, we have looked hard at how many coatings are in the starting set and how many and of what quality are unlocked via engagement versus other systems. Coatings are one part of the customization picture, but we feel all up we will hit our goal for player representation by offering more possibilities across the entire system. While this does mean losing some player control, it increases the depth of customization that we can achieve internally and that you can ultimately show off in public. Here's the thing. That is just confusing. I know you can't say much. We all know the reason why you're doing it for monetization, and we get it. But why can't there also be both? Here's where it gets kind of weird. If you look at these images of these armor coatings, they look freaking sweet. They look awesome. They look so good. But nothing in here really screams anything we couldn't just do with primary colors, sans maybe the scorpion one, or maybe like that camo coating one, which could be a coating, sure, but like the colors are not crazy. It's a black undersuit and colors. I'm just more confused. That simply put, they're acting like some crazy new technology. When other games do it better, do them both. And it's getting ridiculous at that point. There needs to be both. Because, yeah, they say there's going to be plenty, but we don't know what that means. If I had a nickel for every time a company has said the most of this or the best of this, and it's like literally no different or less than our previous iteration of it, I know that's vague and probably didn't make much sense, but I'm just frustrated because this is all so confusing. But moving away from the negative, there's a bright side. They are asked about reach levels of customization, and they have this to say. Helmet attachment, chest, gear, shoulder pads left and right, knee guards, wrist gear, and utility, as well as visor color. These will all be back, and we will go further. Personally, I have always loved visors, and we have a surprise to show soon. I'm really hoping the surprise is that, like with visors, it messes with your HUD a little bit. Like you can kind of customize your HUD. That would be freaking awesome. However, this is now where it gets complicated because I'm happy about this one thing. This is amazing. Like helmet customization, helmet attachments again, utility gear, wrist gear, all this kind of stuff. That sounds so cool, and I cannot wait for that. I'm just confused as to how the coatings implement into that. When we get this scorpion one, do we have to get the arm separate? Do we get the whole thing all together? If we get the whole thing and we want to change to something else, can we do that? Like, it's just a little bit screwy right now, and I really hope they actually elaborate, not just regurgitate this bullcrap they've said before, but actually elaborate on how it works. Give us a demo, show us, please. And they have mentioned they're going to be showing some stuff soon, so that is good. But again, moving away from that negative stuff, that all sounds fantastic. The armor looks good. The coatings look good. And as long as customization really is truly what they're saying, that's definitely a huge up. That's a huge plus. And I'm super excited about that. So overall, what we're seeing so far is pretty good. I really like the image of the multiplayer maps. And if you look closely, you can even see like a grapple shot armor pickup, like a cloaking armor pickup or something, and then like a weapons pad in the background too. So getting some cool classic stuff, and it looks like it's going to be more like classic Halo. And I'm very excited. So overall, I'm feeling like pretty good about this. Now, Joseph Staten does leave us off with a statement that I think is very bold, very powerful, and let's read it. He goes on to say, "My first week on the job, I played the entire Infinite campaign twice. I was, in a word, stunned in the best possible way by what the team had done. Infinite is by far the most expansive and vertical Halo world ever. Why did the team do this? Because they understand that wonder and freedom are key to the Halo experience. I could feel the classic 30 seconds of fun beating at the heart of Infinite's world, but I had never felt more powerful, more mobile, more in command of a rich set of tactical choices. This was the Halo we imagined back in 2000, finally come to life after 20 years of technical and creative innovation." That is absolutely fantastic to hear. Yeah, it's a little PR speak, but with Joseph Staten and his tenure and his reputation, there's a level of trust with him, and that is amazing to hear. And it kind of addresses one of my major concerns. So in the beginning of the video, I asked, is this enough? I think for a couple of things, yes. I think with armor coatings, there's still work to do. They need to show a demo very soon. But I think for the next couple weeks, month or so, this should kind of hold us over. This is a good big update, and we learned some cool things, and we saw some awesome images. Got the Spanker, the old sniper look kind of mixed with the newer sniper look. Some interesting stuff. Very, very cool what they're showing. My major concern with Halo Infinite is the fact that it sounds like it's trying to be Destiny with a 10-year plan. I feel like this big Cortana story, whether we liked Halo 5 or not, I still want to see that story continued, because just like with the Didact, they axed him when they could have made him grow and be better. There's rumors he might be in this. I hope he shows back up. I hope the Cortana story is completed in Halo Infinite. I would hate this to be like a 5-hour campaign, and then over 10 freaking years, we're going to get the Cortana story completed. I want that completed. I want this story to feel epic. Now, Joseph Staten says it does feel very good. He played it twice. He loved it. I'm just really hoping it feels like the third of a trilogy. That's one of my major concerns with the campaign. I don't care about Escharum. Make me care about him. But introducing villains and the third of a trilogy is just weird, and it doesn't always work out. Look at Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, those are my major concerns. I will say that statement does kind of help. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think this is good news? Does this hold you over for at least a little bit? Are you more curious to hear about armor coatings because it's just getting more confusing and they're not telling us anything? Really, nothing haven't heard already. How do you feel about Halo Reach customization though? Halo Reach levels of customization. That's something I'm super excited about. Guys, comment down below. Let's have a conversation. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.